Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am Courtney Anderson, and this is episode 182. 182 episodes of this show that we are now providing for you and to you. So thank you for being part of our community today. I do want to mention, as I always do, please come by CourtneyAnderson.com. That's our main website where we have our central blog and we have our video show that's complimentary to this program. We have articles and many other resources continuing to be added. And we also will be sharing information about upcoming webinars and seminars and all types of opportunities for us to continue to be of service to help you meet and surpass your goals. So stop by CourtneyAnderson.com. When you do, you'll come to page 182. There's a show page on the website that is dedicated just to the show. And as I always do ask you, if you find something that's useful or potentially thought-provoking on our program, please share our show on your social media. Also, leave a rating or a review if you've located our program on iTunes or Stitcher or any of the other distribution channels that we use around the world. Leave us your feedback and tell me what's on your mind. Come to the website and reach out and contact me and tell me what you find to be helpful or useful. And I do also want to ask you, when you're on our website, CourtneyAnderson.com, that you check out the show sponsors. We have our show sponsors, usually advertising, visual elements. You'll see links that are affiliates, and please do click on those. And if there's any purchase of a good or service that you think would be helpful, do so. Now, today is an exciting day. We are launching in the debut of a new series. And this series is one I am really eager to launch. The series that we're launching today is Communications Communique series. Communications Communique series. And one of the reasons, of course, I'm so excited about it is this is one of the areas that I've done coaching and mentoring, keynote speaking, and a lot of work. The area of communications, using our voice and our body and our facial expressions and our posture to convey information. One of the really thrilling things about this is the concept of communications, right? How we are going to convey and express our ideas effectively. That relates to everything I do. So it certainly is a fundamental part of being an attorney. My communications, the voice, the body, the eye contact, the tone, the pitch, all of that. Obviously, being a professor and an educator, same thing. Being a consultant, corporate trainer, being a person who is an expert on media platforms like live television, really important. And I also love just to perform for fun. So I, at times have done and have planned for the future to just do some humor performances at comedy clubs and other type venues. So the communications underlies all the other things that I do. It's also something that we need in our day-to-day life, right? I need to get stuff done. And we talk about surpassing our goals, and then we always talk about practicing this joyful art of business, where we make sure that we're monitoring how we feel about what we do in our lives with our work, to make sure that we're not miserable. And if we are miserable, then that's a clue that we need to go ahead and make some changes. Communication is everything. If you're going to call the utility company to talk to them about your bill, communications. You're going to go out to the store to buy something. Communications. You have to ask for help, or you need someone to assist you with your purchase. Communications. It really is such an important skill, and it's interesting to me because I'll often observe people just in life that are not deploying the effective communication skills to get the outcome they want. Right. So you're at the store, and it depends on what part of the world you're in, but there'll be a variation of this, right? Like somebody really is upset about something, and they might actually have totally valid reason to be upset about it, right? But instead of them using communication skills that are going to help them get what they want, right, to fix whatever the problem is, they use communication skills that make everything worse. So they're rude to the people that work at the store. They're insulting. The way that they are acting is not helping them. It's repelling people who could help solve the problem. And so I always wonder, why do people do this? I have to say, when we were looking and thinking about this series, it's not just that it makes your life harder in little ways, right? Like, people are not going to help you when you're trying to ask a question about your bill. They're not going to be helpful in the store. It hurts you in big ways. I've seen this as a lawyer. It just amazes me. I'm at the courthouse, doing something for my work, and I'll watch other people who talk to the court staff and the judge. I have seen this so many times where somebody's having a problem. Let's say, landlord tenant, right? So they're about to be evicted because they didn't pay their rent. Okay. Okay. Not anything unusual, happens literally every day. And yet the person is in court, and they start communicating in a way with the judge who's going to decide whether they have to leave or they can stay. They start communicating in a way that is so not helpful that it also, in many ways, accelerates the problem and makes it worse. I've seen situations where I've thought, well, if they would just change their communication, they'd have a better chance of getting what they want, right? But they'll yell and scream or insult or throw things. I've seen all of this, and when they do that, then the judge, who might have been listening to their argument and thinking, well, maybe this is something that might be valid. The moment you start doing that, you're screaming, you're yelling, you're insulting somebody, your body language is really aggressive, then most of us are going to just shut down. And so when we talk about communications, it's not something like that's ancillary. It's not something sort of on the side. Like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. It really matters. And in fact, it's the cliche, right? One of the things that we're doing the show, right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Yeah, that's valid. And if and since that's valid, right? Then it means then you really need to pay attention to how you're saying, right? And it astounds me that people don't take this seriously. So that's one of the reasons that we integrated this program. And like I said, you may be someone who I've met, and I've done many seminars over the last almost 15 years just on communication, where I've done we do whole programs on just communication, specific to a situation like an interview or another professional setting, giving us a political speech. And so we do this, and so it's not anything that is at all we could potentially call new, but it definitely is something that, as we were looking at the show lineup, we were thinking, wow, we don't have this as a series, and it needs to be. So welcome to Communications Communique. And of course, look on the show notes, page 182 on coordination.com. We have a little definition, of course, for launching this new series. Communications, the definition that we're using is for the dictionary. We've got a little link there, and it's a technique for expressing ideas effectively, as in speech. So that's what we're talking about. Communication is the field of communications, right? So your voice, again, your body language, eye contact, facial expressions, posture, all of this. Okay. And then communique, love that word, communique. The dictionary definition, also on the show page, that's an official announcement about a usually very important piece of news. So that's what this is, a series. Each one of these episodes is an official announcement from our program about very important pieces of news about communication. So we're talking about, this is a very important announcement about something related to communications. Thus the name, Communications Communique. I love it. I really do. It also has alliteration, right? So here we are. That's all to set up this new series. So thank you for being part of that. What are we talking about specifically? This specific first show in this series is how to use your voice to succeed in a phone job interview. How to use your voice to succeed in a phone job interview. So what are we talking about? We're talking about job interviews. So we have a very specific parameter for this episode. Talking about I want a job, and I'm being interviewed for a job. And so this is from the position of the interviewee, right? We're thinking about I'm being interviewed. I'm the interviewee. I want to get that job. Okay. Let's orient ourselves to a couple of things. One, we need to. Uh, I want to try to find a way to sort of lead up to this, but let's just get to it. You are a performer. You are a performer. You are a performer. Now, I know, like I said, I was going to try to ease us into that, but you are a performer. Why am I making this point? Because, like I said earlier, whether you're in a store, whether you're calling your utility company on the phone, whether you're asking something really, asking for a raise, whether you're in a job interview, whether you're, talking to somebody out and about, in life, you are a performer. And one of the reasons I think that I witness people just sort of out and about in life who are sabotaging what they want because they're not focusing on the communication skills, I don't think people really understand this. This idea that you're going to get out and you're just going to say, you know what, I'm going to put the unvarnished me, unvarnished, raw. I'm not a performer. I'm real. I am real. This is just me. I'm going to just do exactly how and what I want. And I don't care. I'm not performing. I'm just real. Okay. Here's the deal. When you're inside your happy place, and oftentimes we talk about this, I say it's the happiest place in the universe, right? That's wherever it is you stay, you live, your place. Within that, you're 100% correct. That is your happy place. Part of the reason that works is because you shouldn't have anybody in that place that you don't want there. They should be invited. Family, friends. That's your happy place. So in that space, it is unvarnished. When I'm in that happy place, I'm not walking around using my voice as a performer or any other part of my communication set. I'm just doing whatever I want. It's my happy place, right? When you choose to leave your happy place, whether physically or virtually, by doing what? Communicating with someone outside your happy place, on the phone, you're going to accept that job interview phone call, or online, you're doing the Skype call. I don't care if it's what the technology is. I don't care what the modality is. Once you decide you're going to interact outside your happy place, in any way, you are performing because you're usually trying to do something. Here's the thing. Why not make your life as easy as possible? So if you have a way, if you have a tool chest of things that you can pull out and use a tool that is going to make your life faster, more efficient, easier, people will be nicer, why wouldn't you use it? Why would you make your life more difficult? You are a performer. Now, specifically when we're talking about a job interview, yeah, you're performing to do what? To get a job. That's why you're doing the job interview. If you say, well, I'm not going to perform, they're either going to accept me as I am, take me or leave me, then you know what? That's not really a job interview. If you're someone who says, I don't care if I get the job because I already have financial independence, I was just doing this for sort of a hobby or something to fill my time, then it's not exactly a job interview in the sense that you care if you get it. It's just an activity. Now, if it's an activity and you don't care about the outcome, then that's not technically a job interview because you don't really care about the job. You're just sort of doing it to fill your time or because you think it might be fun. And we need to clarify that because it's important. For everybody else who does care about getting that job, then it is a performance because you are communicating with someone outside your happy space, right? Which is the place that you live and reside, which is your place where you have some kind of, it's your dominion. It's where you have some control. No one comes in your happy place unless you want them in there, right? So once you decide you want to go outside your happy place and you really do want the job. Now you may be financially independent, but you may think, hey, this job will be really great. It'll be wonderful opportunities to maybe, travel. It'll be a great problem for me to help, solve. So you do want it. Whatever your incentive for wanting it is doesn't really matter, but you have to have some desire to really want it. If you don't really care, then it's not technically a job interview. It's just sort of an activity to fill your time. So if you have a goal, right, then we're going to do everything we can to surpass that goal. Your voice on a phone interview is all you have. Now, along with it, with your voice, you're going to have pacing. So you're going to use quiet space. You're going to have your breathing. There's a lot you're going to do with your voice, yet you need to understand that this is a very specific performance. You are performing so that you get the job. Okay. When you look at the whole idea of communications, many things that we want to reiterate that I've mentioned, again, if you've been part of one of my other seminars or programs that I've conducted in person on these issues. One is that we remember that about 7% of what we communicate, 7% of what we communicate are the actual words, the content, right? So let's take something like the content, I am hungry. Okay. So I could say something like, I'm hungry. Or I could say, I'm hungry. Or I could say, I'm hungry. Did I communicate completely different things with the same words? Yeah, I did. It really is. When we talk about this, and you understand the power of communications, and you understand the power of of what you have at your disposal with your body and your posture and your breathing and your eye contact and your facial expressions and your voice, and you start to use it, it really does open up your entire professional life, but also your personal life. It just makes everything easier. It gives you a ton of more options, and it also is going to give you much better outcomes in terms of getting what you want. So if 7% of what I'm communicating are the words, right? Then what's everything else? What's what I just demonstrated? It's the pitch, it's the tone, it's the energy, it's the passion, it's the emotion, it's the volume. There's so much. And one of the things that to me is really helpful and is, a bit of I think it probably is an advantage, is I was a lifelong, music lover and musician, right? So as a young kid, I was, placed in, piano lessons and, violin lessons. And then as I got a little bit older, I said, well, here's some of the other instruments I really want to, play. So I played saxophone and clarinet, and I played percussion, I played drums. So I had lots of interest, but I loved music. So I was in music for a really long time. And in music, what are you doing? Well, you're learning the language of reading music. You're learning all of the things we just talked about: pitch, tone, pacing, volume. So that's what you're dealing with. And I think in many ways it is something that's a huge advantage. So I do recommend that if you have any interest in this, if you've never even studied any kind of music or learned to play any kind of musical instrument, just as an aside, you should think about it, because it's a fun hobby, and it doesn't matter if you're quoting it good, but it just opens your mind up to an entire new way of learning how to. It's almost like a language, right? Like reading music is, to a certain degree, it is learning a language, and then you'll also better understand all the things that we're discussing in these shows, right? It matters immensely how you use your voice. Because your voice is your instrument. Whether or not you ever studied music, that's the instrument that you use in your daily life. And so what I'm saying to you, and I already said at the outset of this part of the discussion, was you are performing. You're using your instrument in a way with the public, right? In this job interview, you want the job interview. You want the people that you're talking to say at the end of this process, you're it. You're the one. We're offering you the job. And then it's your opportunity to say, yes, I accept it, or no, I don't accept it. Something happened or I changed my mind, but at least I wanted to be the one that you offered it to, right? So that's your instrument. So let's get our instrument. Let's treat it like we do when we're a musician or anything else. What are we going to do to take care of our instrument? Well, in this program, as it's really short and focused, the key is understanding how you come across to other people with your instrument. How does your instrument sound to other people? And I'm going to say this, and I know that there's a lot of pushback, because like I said, I've been doing these communication programs in person for many years all over the world. So here we go. You must record and listen to your voice. Now I know. Whenever we do this in person, the look on people's faces is sometimes it's just sheer terror. People are freaking out. They don't want to do that. It's like the worst thing. And here's the deal. I get it. I do everything in my power not to ever hear my voice played back. I mean, obviously, when I speak, I hear it. But the catch is this: the voice you and I hear when we speak is not the same voice that other people hear. It makes sense, like acoustic reasons alone. You're inside your own physical body, so what you're hearing, sort of your perception of what you sound like, is not at all going to be accurate in relationship to what other people that are not inside of your body hear. So if you've ever heard your voice played back, right, your voicemail greeting or just anything, you know, there's, for most of us, I know for me and for most people, it's really jarring. And there's this uncomfortable moment where you think, I don't sound like that. There is no way that I sound like that. That voice sounds horrible. You do sound like that. That weird, not awesome, sometimes even yucky voice that you hear when you listen to it being played back on something, that is what everybody else is hearing all the time. I know it's very disturbing, but that's the reality. And part of the reason why you're not getting the phone job interview that's succeeding is because you don't even understand fundamentally what it is that your instrument sounds like. Relying on what you hear is useless because, again, the only person who hears your voice the way that you do, because you're the speaker, is somebody else who would come inside of your physical body and your mind. And good luck with that, because to the best of my knowledge, it's not ever happened. So everybody else is hearing exactly that weird voice that you hear when you play your voice back. I've mentioned in programs, and on my communication programs, that one of the most powerful tools I ever had in communication was, it was about 22 years ago now. Maybe 21, 22 years ago. It was when I was in law school. So I was in school to become a lawyer. And in the U.S. and the States, you have to finish your undergraduate 4-year degree before you can enter into another 3-year graduate degree to earn a doctor of jurisprudence, law degree. So I was in that second degree. I was in that doctor of jurisprudence program, and it was the first time in my life I was ever forced. I wasn't forced, but I was in the class and it was part of the requirements. They videotaped us. Now remember, this is a while ago, so we didn't have the internet technology, we didn't have smartphones, none of that stuff existed. But we had, believe it or not, for maybe younger community members, we actually did have communications and we had all kind of stuff, right? So they videotaped us, and so there was a picture, which is a whole nother thing we're going to discuss in other programs in our Communications Communicate series, with your physical body, which is a whole nother can of worms. But they recorded the sound, and then they made us all sit in this, and it made sense. You're training us. We're in law school, and so we're going to be, speaking as in court. We're going to be speaking to our clients. We're going to be speaking, in many different settings, right? So I was forced to listen to my voice for a prolonged period. Now I'd heard snippets of my voice, whatever, on what we used to have voicemail. But it was literally like they'd have a physical machine you'd plug into a phone that you would record your voice on. It would sort of do the same thing that you would do on just a little voicemail, recording on your smartphone now. But we still had the same idea. I'd heard little snippets of my voice, but I'd done a lot to avoid like prolonged listening to my voice. And in a professional setting. So I'd had some other sort of entertainment and other performing type things that I consider to be a separate type of situation, but in a professional setting I'd only heard little snippets of my voice. So in this class, they forced us to, they videotaped us and audio taped us obviously simultaneously, and then they played it all back. Not just me, I mean everybody else had to sit there and watch it too, for all the students in the class to begin to help us learn what everybody else is perceiving. This painful process I'm mentioning right now. And it was one of the most, horrifying and embarrassing moments. That's why I remember it all these years later, because I honestly didn't understand what I was doing, and I was doing a lot. We'll discuss in this whole series many of the horrible things I was doing. One of the things with my voice, I get really excited, like everybody does, about something that's exciting, and when I do, I speed up and I speak so fast that no one really can grasp the full meaning of what I'm conveying. The speed was a detriment. And the thing that was embarrassing, really embarrassing, is I had had prior feedback where people had said to me while I was a little kid growing up, and teachers and in my other, primary school, and other people, other peers and everyone, people would say to me, "You speak really fast." And I would hear them say that, and I would think, oh, that's a compliment, right? I think fast, I speak fast. That's right, I'm fast. I don't know what in my head that meant, but here's the deal. People were telling me you're communicating poorly, right? The speed is not helping me understand you. And then I just ignored that and thought, yeah, that's me. I'm authentic. I'm real. I speak fast. You need to listen faster. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking, but whatever it was counterproductive and useless. And to have had consistent feedback and then still kept doing it, that's definition of insanity, right? You're told that this is not working. It's totally not working. I'm getting feedback. It's not working. I know it's not working because I keep feeling like, oh, I have to keep repeating myself. Well, yeah, because you speak so fast that no one understands what you're saying. Not no one. I mean, to be very fair, of course, like most of us are in this our community, and most of us on the planet, we pick up speech patterns from wherever we learned it. So when I'm around the people I grew up with, they all speak my rate or faster. Family and relatives or whatever, people that were, that's, I mimic and I learn speech patterns from the people who I was around, right? And you did too. Parents and relatives and caregivers, or, foster parents, or whoever you were, that's where you sort of mimic and learn your basic sort of habits. And that's why they're so hard to change. One, because we learned them in an environment where everybody else was doing the same thing, so it seemed totally normal. It is, when back to my point earlier, when you're in your happiest place in the universe, which is where you live, your domain, where you have control over who comes and who goes. Yeah, in that environment, even today, it's funny, if I'm around relatives and people that I knew from when I was younger who had similar speech patterns, and we're hanging out, doing something fun, like a little party or something. People who aren't from that background, when they come and hear us all speak, they'll say, "Wow, you guys are all really fast," and that's because, yeah, we all, especially people who are relatives, we all sort of learn this the same way, and that's kind of what we're comfortable doing. So I still do revert to all of the things that I am used to and that are habits. When I'm in my regular, authentic, real place, my happy place, and my private place where I live. When I'm out in the world performing, I need to get something done on the phone. I need to get this job interview. I've learned, and embarrassing, I was forced to listen to myself, and I get it now. I'm sabotaging myself. So there's a plethora of things that you need to do. The first thing is admit and own that, yeah, it's a performance. The second thing is that you have to force yourself to listen to a prolonged and ongoing exposure to your own voice, recorded and played back. It's the only way that you're going to be able to face the reality of what you're doing. And then you're going to need to learn all of the different aspects, big picture of what you're conveying through your instrument, which is your voice, when you're doing these performances. In the job interview, what do you want to convey? Well, there's not a job I've ever heard of where you don't want to convey honesty, integrity, competence, intellect, attention to detail, emotional stability, good listening. And you're thinking, well, how does your voice convey listening? Trust me, it does. Do you interrupt people? Right? Do you talk over people? Do you cut people off? I can sit here all day and give you examples of how your voice does display that you're not a good listener. You need to start with, since this is a performance, sort of what's that character? Who's the character? The person who's going to get the job offer. Come on. So go back to sort of your stereotypical, sort of generic, well, we want that person who's, passionate, who is a team player, who wants to do their best, who's conscientious. Okay, that's the character. Now it's going to be slightly tweaked depending if you're, interviewing to be, a faculty member at, an engineering department, or if you're interviewing to be work at a fast food restaurant and answer the phone in a minimum wage job. I mean, there'll be some subtleties and some specifics that'll be added on to sort of our generic, the winner of the job interview process. But the basic structure is the same. You have got to understand that a lot of this is also going to be cultural. So even when for those of you who've traveled, around a little bit on our globe, and or who have just met people who from other parts of our globe, so maybe you didn't travel, but other people from other parts of the globe, sort of came near where you are. If you've ever heard somebody speak a foreign language, and especially if it's a foreign language that you have a some rudimentary fluency in, right? So you have some understanding, you've studied it, or you speak it reasonably well, you thought. If you hear native speakers, it always sounds like they're speaking really fast, right? Part of that is just because it's exactly what I said earlier when I gave my little story about how, we speak the way that we learn to speak. So if the people around us spoke fast, we speak fast. People around us spoke slowly, we speak slowly. And I do want to mention, I have to, we've done some programs on this and we'll continue to. There's some fantastic research coming out that is tying speech. So it's tying it's basically saying if you learn from people who have a wide vocabulary and teach you then a wide vocabulary as it literally from the moment you're out and about as an individual human, as a baby, that will impact you potentially for the rest of your life, and that people who are brought up in environments where they are around a lot of people with larger vocabularies pick that up early, and it gives them this incredible advantage of having a larger vocabulary in their first couple of years of life, that by the time they get to school at 5 or 6 years old, people who come from an environment where they had people who with small vocabularies, they're already behind substantially their peers that were around this large vocabulary. So it's not just how fast people speak, it's the types of words people use, it's the broadness of the vocabulary. It's also the tone. There's a good research that's helping us understand that if you're around people who are sharp in tone, right? So they're, sit still instead of saying sit still. See the difference? That if you get more of that, the anger, then you're going to also have stunted development and delays and disadvantages, deficiencies, right? So the sort of absorbing language from the very beginning is a big deal. So if you're a parent or a grandparent or a foster care or child care, or, and you're around little kids, infants or whatever, guess what? You're performing, because what you're doing is you're literally setting them up for life. All that's to say that when we're looking at this job interview, which is a very simple, narrow, well-defined duration of one call or a couple of calls, and you have a very simple task to have your voice convey to your audience, who's the audience, whoever's listening. And in some aspects, you're also part of the audience yourself, right? You need to convey the character. So you need to sit there once you start understanding and accepting that you are performing. You have a very specific goal. You have a very specific character. Character is the individual who's going to get the job offer. And that you have so much you need to be able to start to break down. The rate of speed, right? Are you slow? Are you fast? Now, just like I said, my tendency is too fast. It's easy to hear that too, depending culturally on where you are. Different societies and different languages, people speak. The expectation is that you're going to speak a different rate. So you need to be aware of that. You need to also understand, that's why I mentioned if you've ever been around a native speaker of a language, it sounds like they're not even speaking the same language sometimes because they're going, quote, so fast. They really aren't. It's just because they're using it more than you are. So, and they're culturally applying it in a different way than you are when you're just sort of speaking it intermittently here and there. That makes sense, right? There's also the challenge of people who speak too slowly. Yes. Too slow is also a challenge. Okay. So what do we tend to think if somebody's too slow? Well, often we think, well, they're thinking slowly, right? Do they have anything to say? And this is something that hurts people because they're brilliant people. They just learned, and this is their pattern, is that they're slow speakers, which in many settings is, again, this is not individually reflective on you and I, right? This is just understanding this is an instrument. Our voice is an instrument that we use in our interactions in the outside world Outside of what? Outside of our private place, our little happy place. Outside of our world to get stuff done, right? And so what I'm saying is the more that we're aware of all of the power of our instrument, it's going to give us an advantage and it makes our life easier. This isn't saying that it's fair that people have the stereotypes about slow speakers and fast speakers, but they exist. So again, I know what the argument is because that's the same silly argument. I told you I'm re-embarrassing myself again. It's not even a phrase, but it's embarrassing. I am ashamed that I didn't understand that when people were trying to help me and saying you speak too fast, that it wasn't a compliment. So if your feedback is it's too slow, again, this isn't anything that's about you. It's just about understanding that your instrument needs to be tuned in the appropriate way to effectively get you what you want. And in this, you want the job interview. So what do you need to do? Speed, volume. Okay, so and we know this. If you've ever been in an enclosed space on a boat or a train or a plane or a bus or a van with a loud talker. Loud talkers. Loud talkers! Loud! Now again, often we learn this. This is another one of the things I struggle with too, right? In some cultures, it's culturally expected to speak louder than in other cultures. So again, if you've been around our globe or people around the globe have been somewhere near where you are, you've heard this, right? You have to adjust and modulate your instrument to adjust to wherever you are doing your job interview performance. So if you, just like the loud talker, right? We think, oh, obnoxious, overbearing, right? We have the same thing with soft talker. Sometimes people think, well, I'm a soft talker. That's just how I talk. Okay, what are the stereotypes of the soft talker? Meek, doesn't speak up, not a leader. Now, here's the thing. You want the job. That's why we already talked about that earlier. We're not talking about people who don't care, that it's just some sort of fun exercise. We're talking about people who want the job. So if you're going to open your mouth and use your instrument and tell people through your voice that you're not a leader and it's a job for a management position, you're not going to get it. You did this to yourself. If you open your voice and you're a loud talker, they're going to think you're so abrasive and that you're not going to be at all someone that's going to be listening and being part of the team and helping make decisions and they don't, and here's the thing we talked about earlier and I said it, I see this all the time out and about in life, and I hear it, right? I'll hear and see people do things where they just sabotage themselves. They basically guarantee that the people at the store aren't going to help them, that the judge is not going to be open to listening to more, testimony from them because they already gave a lot of testimony, but because they're yelling and screaming and insulting and being harsh and abrasive, now people start shut down. Remember, when we're relating to people, we are amazing organisms. Just my personal bias. I am a human, and I enjoy that. As I talk about in many different shows, all the different things about my experience of my existence, how I perceive myself that I actually think are awesome. I think being a human is awesome. I'm sure if I was not a human and something else, I think that was awesome too. I mean, I'm just, you know what I mean? I think it's, awesome that I'm, whatever, physical body I am, because I am this, right? So why not embrace it? That we relate to each other human to human. And so many of us think professionally, well, but I've accomplished this and I have these credentials and this experience and this degree and all this, and that's what's going to get me the job. No, honey, it isn't, because you're relating to another human. And when we're relating, we're using all of these other sensory communication analysis techniques. So you're going to sabotage the job with the soft talking. Yeah, I'm a team player. Or the loud talking. Yeah, I'm a team player. Too fast? Yeah, I'm a team player. Or too slow? Yeah. I'm a team player. You see? Okay, and we've only hit, this is just a little taste. But this is, our first show in the series. Okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to get the interview. And you're going to use your tool, your voice, your instrument in that interview to go ahead and do everything in your power to make you the applicant that they're going to offer the job to. Again, soft, loud, slow, fast. I'll mention this. The use of verbal crutches are fillers that people pick up as a habit. So sometimes, we all have habits. Some people, may, tap their fingers, or some people, you know, may do, you fidget, whatever. But the verbal crutches are phrases that you'll use to just sort of fill silence. But what they'll do, unfortunately, is when you listen to yourself back, which is the first thing that you're going to do, right? And it's going to be the last thing that you do, and it's going to be the ongoing thing that you do because it's the only way to listen to your instrument. You have to hear what your instrument is. The verbal fillers and those crutches are destroying your credibility in a job interview. So they're usually phrases like, you know what I mean, yeah. They're anything. I mean, they could be anything. I mean, literally anything. So here's any, yeah. So if I'm saying yeah, and if you think yeah, and sometimes I'm wondering yeah, and I wonder, and then I'm thinking, you know what I mean? And I really love this job opportunity, you know what I mean? Okay. The more you use them, all that starts to happen when you play it back and you hear it, it's embarrassing. I've had them too, right? So, I mean, all of this is, I've learned the hard way. That's why we're doing the program so that you don't have to learn the hard way. When you play these back, all that people start to hear is the verbal filler because it's just repetitive. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Yeah, right. That's right. Dude, I mean, they can be anything, and they're sometimes they're specific to different, slang or cultures or whatever. It's irrelevant. What you're doing is you're polluting your performance with fillers often because you're again using it to fill space or you're using it to transition. You stop. The only way to do this, and this is really something that takes intensive work. What's the work? You listen. Okay, you're going to record yourself speaking, and I mean for long periods. So don't record yourself for like oh, I recorded myself for 30 seconds. No, you need to record yourself for 10 minutes every morning or afternoon or evening, and then you need to listen to that. Because what'll happen is 10 minutes, which doesn't sound really that long, and it isn't really, you'll start off thinking, well, I'm being recorded, so I'm not going to use my verbal filler, and I'm going to make sure I'm speaking, I'm projecting. That's where you're not so soft. And or modulating if you're too loud, you want to bring it down volume. You'll start off thinking, okay, I'm doing all of this. But the longer you keep talking, and it's just a few minutes, then the more you're going to revert back to your habits, which is exactly what you do in the job interview. The job interview is not going to be 30 seconds. And there's a lot of other programs that we need to integrate with this depending on what type of interviewer you're dealing with. So you're going to have a lot of work you're going to have to do to figure out. A really skilled interviewer is going to do everything in their power to have you talk as much as possible. Whoever talks first and whoever talks longest is usually the one that is giving up the most information. Now, in the job interview, you want to give up information because you were trying to give them the information that you're the best applicant. The challenge is, as the time goes on, a skilled job interviewer, his entire goal is to make you relaxed. Relaxed. I love it all, because I do so much work with this, right? So I love when I'll read something and someone will say, oh, I went on this job interview and it was so great. I just felt like we were friends. I was so relaxed. And I'm thinking, that was nothing but manipulation. That's what you should have felt. That's what they want you to feel, because when you do that, you're going to relax and you're going to start to slip into whatever your real habits are. And that's going to give them a better ability to assess if what's really going on, right? So a skilled interviewer doing everything in their power to make you feel relaxed, at home. They're using their instrument the same way you're using yours. They're performing. They just have a totally different goal. Their goal is to try to weed out and uncover all of the real hidden things that people don't want them to know so they can figure out who really is the most qualified. So they're using their voice. Friendly, warm, open, supportive, interested, right? You are using your instrument. Same thing. Friendly, open, interested. We have to mention, now you see, these are just a few things. These are just a few things. When I work one-on-one with clients on this individually, then of course I'm listening to their voice and I'm working up a whole, profile of all the things you need to work on individually. I'm just giving you some of the big picture issues. This is by no means is this exhaustive at all. One of the things I have to mention is your breathing. And I know you're thinking, my voice is when I'm speaking. Sort of. That's part of it. But your breathing and all the rest of your communication is coming through on that phone interview. So if you have someone and let's say they're doing pretty well, right? So that they're speaking and they're saying, I'm so happy it worked out with the calendar. This interview is something I've really looked forward to. I just think that your organization is, one of the global leaders and something that I would love to learn more about. Okay. Those sighs, the heavy breathing, and all this kind of stuff. When you hear your voice play back, you're going to hear it. And when I teach programs on this, there are a million examples. I'm sure there's more than a million examples. Obviously, there's 7 billion people on the planet, but there are a multitude of high level examples of people who didn't take this seriously and how it hurts them. And so one of the ones I've used, because we've got a great public record of it, and the United States will have a presidential election every 4 years, and it's a big deal. It's a lot of money. It's a big country, and so there's a lot of hoopla around it and attention and everything, and then people pay a ton of attention to it for a little bit, and then it goes away, and you don't hear anything for a couple of years, assuming, of course, you're not a politician. But there was a presidential election years ago, and one of the people who's the job applicant, right, is the interview. Now, of course, this is voice and body, but they were they do these debates, they call them. I don't know how much actual debating goes on. That's neither here nor there, but they actually do get the people both. At the end, they'll have two people that are representing two sort of large constituent parties. That's just how our system is set up. Sometimes they'll have three, but usually it's just these two big parties. So at the end of this long job interview, they have these presidential debates. And by that time, it's just two people from the two major large political parties. And so they had a debate years ago where one of the applicants had this habit, right, where they sighed really loudly. Now, part of it was, I'm sure, habit. Part of it also was it was frustration at whatever the other person who wanted the job was saying that, of course, obviously they didn't agree with, or else they wouldn't be, opponents probably. The thing is, it came across exactly like it comes across anywhere. If you're having the job interview for your phone job interview, and the other person's talking, and it sounds like you're what? First of all, it's rude. But are you bored? Are you insulting them? It's a way of interrupting people. It's a way of, it's distracting. And it's something that if you don't think about and pay attention to, it happens. Now, of course, I don't know any of the individuals that I'm using as this example from the political thing, obviously, but I'm pretty sure that you don't get to that point because it takes an immense amount of time and money and everything and stress. I doubt anybody would do that and then intentionally want to sabotage themselves and and be in that situation like we talked about earlier where they don't really care if they get the job. I'm pretty sure that they're invested at that point and they really want it. So they wouldn't intentionally sabotage themselves with the loud breathing, but they do it and the sighing and stuff. People do it. And I'm arguing they do it because of exactly what we were talking about in this whole series, and definitely the show. You're performing. Now, of course, you're thinking, well, yeah, they're on television and being recorded. It's a big deal. But I'm saying you're doing it all the time. You have a job interview. If you get the job, then there you go. Money, opportunity. If you don't get it, you're staying exactly where you are. So it's a deal. It's an important deal. It may not be the biggest deal in your life, but it's important to you. That's why you want the job. You must understand that in this show, we're introducing you to some of the things that you need to be aware of, but how do you use your voice? Your voice has to convey that character. Who's the character? The person they're going to hire. Patience, attention to detail, whatever cultural energy that they're looking for, politeness, inquisitiveness, intelligence. All of that is through the speed, the pitch, the tone, the projection. We didn't even vocabulary. We did a show on vocabulary, and I mentioned a little bit earlier in this program how important that is. The words you're using. I haven't even gotten to, that's a whole different program, right? The questions that you're going to provide and the things you're going to say in terms of the content to show them that you're the extraordinary applicant, that you should be the one who gets the job. But I want you to understand in this program that your voice will either help you or it'll doom you. And most people, I think they're doomed by it, but they don't even understand it. So this is such an individual situation that you're going to have to start with your work. And you're going to have to get a baseline, meaning you're going to have to record yourself. And like I told you, don't give me any 2-minute recording. It's nothing. I need at least 10 minutes. You're going to record it. And then you're going to force yourself. And I know this is hard. It's excruciating For some of us, for me it is. You're going to force yourself to sit and listen to yourself for at least 10 minutes. And I want you to do that for at least a week. And I want you to write down all the things that you start to hear. The speed, the pitch, the tone, the breathing. And you're thinking, well, that's not an interview though if I just listen to myself. Here's the deal. When you're in the interview or any other interaction in life, what you're going to do when you're thinking about the job or the issues or the question is you're going to just make that the priority in your mind, and you're going to fall back on your old habits. That's what's going to happen. And that's why it's imperative that if you're going to really learn how to use your voice to succeed in the phone job interview, you got to learn how you use your voice right now. And then what you're going to do is remove those things that are hurting you. And then you're going to enhance those things that are helping you. And I have to mention this as we close this episode. The most important part of preparing for using your instrument is before you pick up your instrument. It's the mental and emotional part. So if you want your voice to convey calm, maturity, engagement, you need to mentally be in that space. If you think you're going to, get ready for the phone interview, and let's say the phone interview is, in 8 minutes, it's, you got to call in, and you think you're going to run around, yelling at your people that you live with in your private happy place because they didn't do their chores, and, you haven't gotten to a place where you're calm and centered, you're sabotaging yourself, because your people can hear in your voice, like we said, they're hearing 93% of what's going on. That means if you were right before you got on the call, you were, like I said, having a stressful interaction with someone, you're saying, I told you to pick up your clothes. And then you think you're going to get a phone interview and it's not going to come through that you're agitated and you're angry. It is. You must mentally and emotionally have the space to prepare. You must go to that place in your mind as far in advance as you can. If you have 6 minutes before you have to call in, you need to go to your happy place. If it's a restroom, it's the only place you can go where there's any kind of quiet or hope. I don't care where you have to go. If it's outdoors, if it's in a corner in a closet, if it's, I don't care, but you need to go to the happy place, and you need to lower your anxiety level. I need to get to a calm, serene place in your mind and your emotional state. Then you're going to be ready to go get on that call. If you don't do this, they're going to pick up every single emotion that's coming through. Now, it might be that you're agitated about somebody not doing their chores, which has literally nothing to do with this super awesome job opportunity. They don't know that. You come across as high-strung and anxious, maybe unstable, and all of, you must clear your emotional, again, and mental space. And you have to focus. So if you think you're going to be on the phone and that it's not going to come through, that, while you're on this phone call, you're glaring at somebody in the space with you because you're still angry that they didn't pick up their clothes, and that you think that anger and that frustration won't come through on your voice. You're delusional. It will. It picks up everything. It all comes through. So this was just a taste. But I think it's an excellent opportunity for you to get serious about your voice. And so, as I don't know when the job interview is, but you need to start yesterday as soon as possible and do the recording and get in the inventory of kind of what's going on with your voice. And what can we do then to start moving you forward toward a situation where you're going to be able to show your intellect, your engagement, your attention to detail, your knowledge, in a way that then of course you're going to be the one that they offer the job. But this is not something that you can ignore and then spend 4 minutes on, and then boom, it's a big success. You must prioritize this. And I hope that this has been a beginning of some understanding of how powerful and how fundamental your voice is. If you convey what you need through your voice performance in the interview, then you're going to get the offer. And I do hope that you continue to take part in this series if you have communications issues, because we're going to spend different shows on all these different aspects, and doing everything that we can to empower you, so that together we'll be able to move you towards surpassing your goals and understanding how this whole process works. But you must start with your, I have no other language, but your forced exposure for prolonged periods to your voice. And then we can begin to get a baseline and understanding of what the specific issues are that are impacting you negatively, and what we need to do to turn this around. No matter what, you must take a buffered amount of time. I don't care if it's 3 minutes or 30 minutes or 3 hours, but you need to get ready for these interviews. Remember, it's a performance. And so you must be in that calm place, focus, because if you're not, you're sabotaging yourself. Every other emotion, everything else that's going on, that's got, it's unrelated to the job maybe, but it's all coming through in your voice. And all the other side is hearing is, anxiety, frustration, short-tempered. They're hearing all this, sharper breaths. They're hearing it all. So you're stealing from yourself if you don't, use the opportunity to take control of your instrument and provide the absolute best performance possible, so that you're going to get the job, of course, job offer, and then you'll make a decision if you want the job. But this is not just, as you can tell, limited to this one situation. This focus of using our instrument is going to be applicable across everything that we do. So again, welcome to the Communications Communicate series. This was our debut show, How to Use Your Voice to Succeed in a Phone Job Interview. And I hope it was an excellent starting point. Or if you knew a lot of this and have been doing it, but maybe you haven't done it in a while, I hope it's a refresher. So let's start with our exposure to your voice, and then stay in touch. Let me know. Reach out to me. Come to CourtneyAnderson.com. And like I said, I have certainly in the past, and we will be doing in the future, programs on just these types of issues. And there may even open up an opportunity for potentially for me. It depends on scheduling, might be able to accept individual people to work with doing coaching and professional development individually. But no matter what, I'm here. So thank you. Use your voice. Get out there and start listening to what you really sound like. Thank you so much for joining me.